Welcome to Coronation Windsor, a weekly series where we look into the history of the British monarchy and coronations ahead of the coronation of Charles III. For over 1,000 years, kings and queens of the United Kingdom have ruled over their lands, and they have been witnesses to events that have either dominated or changed Britain. But while their reigns were memorable and sometimes controversial, a coronation marks a significant mark during their time as monarchs, whether they ruled independently or under the legislative authority of the British government. On the 6th of May 2023, a new ceremony will be taking place at Westminster Abbey, and this is the coronation of King Charles III, who will be crowned alongside his Queen Consort Camilla. In honour of the coronation, History Inside a Nutshell will be covering topics involving the coronation, from the British monarchy to the 411 on Charles's ceremony one day before the event. This will hopefully be followed by a conclusion video uploaded on the day of the coronation itself. I hope you enjoy the videos, and if you would like to continue watching the series or look into the past videos on the channel, please subscribe for more. The Three Charleses. In the first video of the series, we'll be touching on the kings who have made a significant impact on British history. When the last Tudor Queen, Elizabeth I, died in 1603, England was going through religious turmoil. The change from being a Catholic country to a Protestant one following the reign of Henry VIII had families, friends and subjects divided. Now, with a new Scottish Protestant monarch on the English throne, Catholics were determined to bring back the old religion, either by persuasion or through terrorism. Fast forward to 1625, the union between England and Scotland welcomed a new king with open arms. Suddenly, his popularity went downhill, but we'll get to that shortly. Now, with a new monarch on the throne, over 400 years later, these three King Charleses have been involved in many scandals, religious troubles, wars, and one involving himself with activism attempting to protect the world for future generations. These are the stories of the three King Charleses. Charles I. Charles I was born on the 19th of November 1600 to King James VI of Scotland and Anne of Denmark. Charles was a fragile child, and because of ill health as a baby and a toddler, he remained in Scotland with his guardians while the rest of his family travelled to England following the death of the last Tudor Queen, Elizabeth I. He remained there until 1604, when he moved to London to join the rest of his family. Although his family was dysfunctional, Charles had a close relationship with his mother and his sister Elizabeth, who would later become the Queen of Bohemia. He also idolised his older brother, Prince Henry. However, there was one person who Charles disliked: his father's favourite, George Villiers, the first Duke of Buckingham. The two were restrained, with one source claiming that Charles once sprayed Buckingham with water, and in return he told Charles to kiss his arse. Later on, the rivalry settled down and the two became friends. Throughout his childhood, Charles wasn't supposed to be king, as his older brother was heir to the throne. Tragically, Prince Henry died aged 18, and following his death, 12-year-old Charles became the new Prince of Wales. Charles's father died on the 25th of March 1625, leaving him as King Charles I. When he was king, his popularity went downhill, and there were reasons for this. First was the friction between him and the Parliament. The second was arranging marriage negotiations with Catholic France. And the third was the financial and religious policies. Charles had ideas, and although he proposed them to Parliament, Parliament said no. This led to Charles getting frustrated and to dissolve Parliament. Charles disagreed with Parliament's decisions because, in his view, he had the authority to make decisions independently with God's anointed hand. This belief was called the divine right of kings. His views as King of England affected the terms of the Magna Carta because under the terms of the Magna Carta, a monarch's power is limited and they have to abide by the law. Because of the divisions, Charles lost friends under Parliament's decisions, like impeachments of unpopularity MPs, Charles's wife, the assassination of Buckingham, and the execution of the Earl of Stratford. However, Charles managed to rule England without Parliament for 11 years, but when Parliament had enough, war was declared. The English Civil War went on for 9 years, but in its 6th year, Parliament arrested Charles, and in 1649 Parliament put him on trial before being sentenced to death. On the 30th of January that year, outside the banqueting house in Whitehall, Charles was beheaded in one clean stroke. Charles II. Charles II was born on the 29th of May 1630 to Charles I and his queen Henrietta Maria. The oldest out of 8 children, Charles grew up with the idea that kings have a divine right to rule. The same beliefs as his father. His mother played an important role, and it was through her that Charles became emotionally attached to Catholicism. But he wasn't the only one in his family to feel that way. Charles had seen relatives converting to the religion, including his cousin Prince Rupert of the Rhine, and his younger brother who would later become King James II. It's not known if Henrietta Maria had a part in encouraging members of the family to convert to Catholicism, but what's for certain is that converting to the religion was very dangerous. When Charles was a teenager, the English Civil War broke out, and for years he went on the run from Oliver Cromwell and the Puritans. Being forced into exile, Charles went to France and the Netherlands. Following the execution of Charles I, the English government made a declaration denouncing the monarchy by making England a republic. This meant that by the act of legislature, Charles lost his royal titles. Not long afterwards, an overture came from the Scottish government. Through this, they cooperated with Charles, and a few Covenanters travelled to The Hague, where Charles signed the Treaty of Breda. The treaty had included many demands, including one that stated Charles should recognise the authority of the General Assembly in civil law. However, Charles had to give up his devotion to the Catholic faith. With a heavy heart, he did, and in 1651, Charles was crowned King of Scotland at Scone Palace. Charles was the last king to be crowned in Scotland. Not long after his coronation, Charles raised an army to fight Oliver Cromwell and the Puritans, but after losing the Battle of Worcester, Charles was on the run again. He ran from the Puritans in Europe, Wales, and the north of England. On occasions, he hid under priest holes where he took shelter from the enemies. Oliver Cromwell died in 1658, but it wasn't until 2 years later that the English government invited Charles back, and the monarchy was restored. During his long reign, Charles's popularity was up and down, mainly because of war, his decisions, disagreements with Parliament, the division of religions, affairs with various mistresses, including actress Nell Gwyn, and his involvements during the Great Plague and the Great Fire of London of 1666. When Charles died in 1685 from a stroke, he converted to Catholicism. When his brother became King of England, Charles's illegitimate son led a rebellion against James. The rebellion had failed, and the Duke of Monmouth was executed for treason. Charles III. Charles III was born on the 14th of November 1948 to the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh. The oldest out of 4 children, Charles was a modern prince, perhaps taking inspiration from his parents and what he had learned through his life experiences. When Charles was 3 years old, his grandfather, George VI, died from lung cancer, and his mother became the new monarch, Queen Elizabeth II. Charles was the first child to attend a royal coronation, and he received a personal handmade invitation for the occasion. At the age of 11, Charles attended Gordeston School in Scotland. While there have been claims that he was bullied there, His Majesty praised the school as it taught him a great deal about himself and his abilities and disabilities. It taught me to accept the challenges and take the initiative. Following his time at Gordeston, Charles attended Trinity College, Cambridge, where he studied archaeology, anthropology, and history. In 1969, Charles was crowned Prince of Wales at Carnarvon Castle during a televised ceremony. Before the ceremony, he had to learn Welsh, which he did successfully. Later on, he joined the Navy and the Royal Air Force. In 1981, Charles married Diana Spencer at St Paul's Cathedral, and the marriage did produce 2 sons, William, now the Prince of Wales, and Harry, Duke of Sussex, who were born in 1982 and 1984 respectively. However, the King's love life was the subject of speculation and criticism in the early years of his courtship with Camilla Parker Bowles and during his marriage to Diana. Although they began their courtship before Charles's first marriage, they continued the affair, and by the time Charles and Diana's divorce became public, Camilla got the blame. In 1997, Diana died in a car crash in Paris, and following her death, Charles dedicated himself to becoming a supporting father for William and Harry, being there for them as much as he could. In 2005, Charles and Camilla married in a civil ceremony at Windsor Castle. On the 8th of September 2022, Queen Elizabeth II died at Balmoral Castle. Charles was proclaimed king on the 10th with a Privy Council ceremony at St James's Palace. This was the first ceremony in history to be televised. Charles and Camilla will be crowned together on the 6th of May at Westminster Abbey. The stories of the 3 King Charleses have been subjects of political controversy, corruption, and criticism, mainly on their love lives. But they have changed Britain by advocating reformism and bringing the country into modern times. What will King Charles III bring to the table after the coronation? Who knows? Until then, we'll have to wait and see. Tune in tomorrow for a new video. If you enjoyed the mini-series, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much for your support, and until then, God save the King.